This happened to a friend of mine who lived in the same neighborhood as me when we were about 8 or 9 years old. My friend Emily and her family lived just a few houses down the street from mine. We lived in a neighborhood where almost everyone knew each other. The biggest worry we ever had was that some outsider would come into the neighborhood and cause trouble. Some people left their homes unlocked because we felt that safe here. There was an incredibly nice family that lived directly across the street from Emily's house. A mom, a dad, a 16-year-old son, and their other mentally challenged son who was 22 years old. I'll call him Tim. Tim was always home because he wasn't employed due to his disability, but his parents were working full-time and his brother had school. All day every day, he would be outside waving and smiling at anyone who drove or walked by. Really nice big smiles, showing all of his teeth and sometimes giggling, just out of the pure excitement and happiness of interacting with other people since he spent most of his time alone. He was not creepy to me whatsoever. One day Emily was sick and didn't go to school. Even though she was only about 8 or 9, Emily was allowed to stay home sick by herself. Plus her mom was going to be home around 2 o'clock anyways, since she only worked part-time, and the neighborhood was really safe. All of the doors were locked except the one that led into the garage. They used this as their front door because it was easier in those cookie-cutter homes to just open the garage, pull in and get out of the car, close the garage, and walk into their house through the unlocked door that led from the inside of the garage to the inside of their home. This is obviously not the safest way to protect your house from intruders, but we all literally did it, as if a flimsy garage door could keep anyone from getting in if they wanted to. The worst part is that they had an outside cat and kept the garage door cracked just enough for him to get inside, for his food or shelter if he wanted to. So Emily was asleep, feeling sick with a fever. All the doors and windows were locked, except the door leading to the cracked garage door. Tim was bound to know that she was home alone, since he was outside the front of his house all of the time. At some point, Emily wakes up to pounding on the front door. Startled, she walks downstairs and looks through the peephole. It's Tim. She cracks the door and he says something along the lines of how he notices everything and would guard her home since she's home alone. She said thanks, but there was no need to, and to have a good day. It was beautiful weather that day. He looked pissed off and he got angry and said, "You think I can't do it because I'm dumb? But you can watch and see, because I ain't dumb." She said sorry and that she didn't mean it like that, but she had to rest now. She dozed off and woke up to a noise downstairs in the kitchen, the room the door from the garage led into. She hadn't heard the garage door open, but she was sick, so she figured she was deep in a sleep and just hadn't noticed. Completely disorientated from time, she looked over at the alarm clock. It was 10:20, way too early for her mom to be home. At that moment, she heard noises again downstairs. She didn't call out. She had been sleeping in her parents' bedroom and ran to their bathroom, slamming the door loudly. Then she remembered their bathroom door had no lock on it. The noise she made slamming the door alerted the intruder to where in the house she was at, and big footsteps started coming upstairs. She moved quickly and quietly to her parents' closet, which was on the other side of the big room. She closed the doors and hid behind some clothes, the whole time thinking how someone would have gotten inside. She remembered that the garage door was cracked for the cat slightly, but not closed enough for the thin person to slip underneath. That's when Tim walks into the bedroom. Tim is tall and thin. She can see him through the slatted closet doors. She sees that he's holding a knife and did everything she could not to scream. He quickly went to the master bedroom, where she was just moments before. These cookie-cutter houses only had about 3 floor plan layouts, so it wasn't hard for him to find. He looked inside the bathroom and didn't see her, then started making loud throaty noises, like someone would if they're frustrated and angry, while pacing the entire house. She stayed in the closet for hours, even after she heard him exit through the front door. She even stayed until her mom got home. She was crying hysterically and told her mom what happened. Had she not been so upset, and had one of their kitchen knives not have been left by the front door, her mom might have blamed it on her being delirious from a high fever, because nobody would ever expect Tim to do that. The police were called and official report was filed. I'm not sure if he had any charges pressed against him, because after she told me this story once, she refused to talk about it again. I overheard her parents a few times talking about the situation to my own parents, but I never heard what the consequences were. Emily was so traumatized that she went to therapy afterwards for several years, and still wouldn't talk to anyone about it because she didn't want to remember or relive the experience. We even moved into an apartment together years and years later for college purposes. She never talked about Tim. It was like he never existed, and I never asked. I noticed she always locked the front door, which you should, of course, always lock the door. And she always locked the door that led to the patio balcony area, even though we were on the 7th level. and always locked her bedroom door, onto which she added an additional lock. And when she locked all of these doors and the windows, she would usually check like 3 times. I often wonder if there was more to the story than what Emily told me. We were kids after all, and sometimes kids don't know how to explain things they don't understand. It's terrifying to think about what his intentions were, and if he perhaps did find Emily and something else happened. As horrifying as the experience must have been for her, it's made a huge statement in the neighborhood for everyone to be more careful. I will always make sure everything is locked. I was young, maybe 12 to 13 at the time. I had several friends who lived in the neighborhood behind mine, and I was a latchkey kid, so I would often walk there by myself, and I would have to walk home by myself, the walk being maybe 10 minutes or so. One day I was walking to a particular friend's house to spend the night, so I had my backpack with me. I had made it past the clearing of the small wooded path that I take from my neighborhood to hers, when I noticed a large white van, the kind stranger danger stereotypically warns you about. When I walked by, I noticed 2 men were driving, and something about their faces made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. I continued walking, trying to glance every now and again to see if the van had started moving. Much to my dismay, it did. It was going very slow. This was a residential area after all. I immediately started running. I turned a corner quick and luckily made it to my friend's house, losing them at the last minute. I was huffing and puffing as I was a child with asthma, and so my friend's dad asks what happened and goes outside to see the van, but it's gone. He tells me I watched too many horror movies and that I was probably overreacting. A couple of days later, I was yet again going to sleep at this friend's house, so I have my backpack. This was the early 2000s, so I didn't have a cell phone yet. I clear the same path and notice the same men in the same van, and immediately they lock eyes with me. They've seen me, and they know which street I'm walking to, and they're close enough to me that if I turn around, I'm confident they'll catch me on foot. I book it, and I have never run my little asthmatic ass so fast before. To my horror, the van accelerates, and it's following me up until I reach the street, at which point the man in the passenger seat flung the door open and started chasing me on foot. He was pretty overweight, so I knew my best chance was to outrun him. I threw my backpack, hoping it would either hit him or trip him, and luckily, he stumbled over it long enough to stall him a bit. I made it to my friend's house, and her dad called the police. They retrieved my backpack, but the men were gone, and unfortunately, I didn't catch a license plate. I didn't see them or hear anything about it again until a few weeks later when we received a letter in the mail from the town police department, alerting my parents that one of the registered sex offenders, who had moved in years ago, was arrested again for attempting to kidnap another child on the same street. He was the one driving, the second man being his new accomplice. They had attached a photo of both the men, and even their eyes on paper made my blood run cold. I'm pretty much a stalker and bully magnet, it seems. I think it's because I'm shy and I don't say much. So, for weirdos and creepers, that's bait material. They think that they can take advantage of me and that I'll just let them and not fight back. I'm 28 female for reference. I may not be the best storyteller, so forgive me for rambling and for the length. Anyhow, this happened for a year and a half-ish, starting November of 2011. I was living by myself in a 2-bedroom house that was at the end of the street, close to an open secluded field. It wasn't in the safest area, but it wasn't in the ghetto either. Somewhere in between. I never really hung out with friends because of work, schedule, errands, and taking classes, etc. And all of my family lived out of state. So I was basically always alone, which is how I like to be. I'm pretty independent and I live a very private life. Also, I couldn't afford a car at the time. I had to walk by my neighbor's house in order to get onto the main part of the road towards the park, where I did most of my jogging. My neighbor who lived 4 houses down from me took notice of this and took it upon himself to try to save me from my loneliness. I'm pretty predictable and my schedule is the same on an almost day-to-day basis. Wake up at 5:45 to go jogging, work at 6:30, lunch break at 11 o'clock for an hour, go home at 4 o'clock, art class at 5:30, maybe another jog at 7:30, and home by 8:30. I suppose it's kind of bad that I do the same thing almost every day, but it's easier for me to remember what I have to do. I am, however, always aware of my surroundings, and I started to notice my neighbor just standing out on his front lawn all the times I was out and about. Whenever I would go home, he would watch me until I reached my door, then turn around and start walking towards his house. After a few weeks of him giving me the stare down, he started with small talk. "Hey, how are you?" In which I would just give a polite nod, a mumbled "good," and a goodbye wave. Each time he would say a little more. "Hey, so you live alone in that house? Where do you work? How come you don't seem to get visitors?" I tried to stay polite but evasive in my responses and not give too much information away. "I work in town. I'm a very busy person." Nervous laughter, fumbling with my headphones as I gave him another awkward wave. This went on for a few months now, with him trying to pry me with more information and even trying to block me from jogging around him. I noticed him becoming more aggressive and needing to know my whereabouts, and once I even caught him snooping through my mail before replacing the envelopes back in my box and walking away. One time, my best friend did come by on my birthday to give me a present and my cake. The next day, my creepy neighbor was drilling me as I was walking by. "Who was that guy that stopped by yesterday? Was he your boyfriend? He stayed for like 3 hours. What were you doing?" I became very annoyed. I just shrugged, saying, "None of your business." Gave him a fake smile, and I turned my speed, walking into a slow jog. At this point, I about had enough. I had been polite but very obviously clear that I wasn't interested in casual conversations or being constantly pressed to speak and interrogated about my personal business. I enjoy being on my own. I'm not much of a talker, and I hate feeling forced to. One day, while returning from one of my evening exercise routines, I was speed walking to my house. Out comes said neighbor running towards me with a very angry expression on his face. He blocks my path and stands directly in front of me with his arms crossed against his chest. "We need to talk now," he screamed. Being so surprised by his outburst, I took a few steps back. He was a big guy, husky and tall. I'm fairly small, 5'3" and 115 pounds. He towered over me. "About what?" I asked. He then says, paraphrasing here, "Every day I see you walking around and around for hours and hours, always by yourself. I know all about you. And this is my neighborhood, and I know everyone and everything that goes on here. You don't have any friends or family, and you are very lonely. I can save you. We can be great friends. I love you." I took several steps back with my arms out, afraid of what he may or may not do, and because I was feeling incredibly uncomfortable, I then felt my rage start to build up. I pretty much screamed at him, saying that he doesn't know me, and asking him how he can love me and know everything about me when he barely knows me at all. I happen to like being on my own, and I enjoy living a private life. I have been polite to you this far, but obviously you can't take a hit and just leave me alone. I have been giving you no indication whatsoever that I wanted to be your friend. Now, I've been quite obvious in letting you know that your constant snooping and barrage of questions not only annoys me, but makes me uncomfortable. So since you can't take a subtle hint, I'll be clear. Leave me alone." He just starts laughing. Laughing like I said the funniest joke of all time. Meanwhile, I'm standing there fuming because I'm not used to screaming and spending energy in that way. I'm soft-spoken usually, and it takes a lot for me to raise my voice. You have to push me to my limit. He stops laughing long enough to say, "I know that you need saving, and I'm your neighbor, so that means I love you. And I love you very much. I'm not a creepy guy." He then gets very serious again. "I just know you like the back of my hand, and I know that I can save you and make you happy. You don't like to be alone, and I can't stand the fact that you walk everywhere and exercise all the time. You don't need to do that every day. I hate that you do that. You need to come over to my house instead and have a few beers. Have fun. Maybe live a little bit. Stop being so serious all the time." I told him to leave me alone again, and that he doesn't know shit about me. I quickly walked away, and I ran to my house, slamming the door behind me. I can hear him laughing again. I called a friend and I told them what happened, and they suggest calling the cops, but for whatever reason, I didn't. I started to become paranoid after that incident, and if I saw him already sitting on his front lawn, I would stay inside. I stopped walking down that street that led out of the main part of town altogether. Instead, I detoured and walked through the secluded open field by my house. I opened a gym membership so I can still exercise without him seeing me jog around the block, and I just pretty much tried to avoid him as much as possible. But one rainy day, my ninja skills slipped and he saw me cutting through the field. He started running full speed towards me, but I reached my house in time to lock the doors. A few moments later, he was banging on my door, saying my name, and saying to open the door now. I waited until he left and I cautiously opened the door, and a small folded piece of paper fell. I picked it up and relocked the door. It said, "Call me," with his phone number. I ripped it up and called the same friend as before and complained. Again, they advised that I call the cops, but at this point, my lease was up and I was moving in less than a week, so I was like, probably not. Stupid, I know. Fast forward to moving day, I'm with a few friends, some work colleagues, and we're packing my stuff up into several cars and cleaning everything up. As we are finally driving down the street one last time, out comes the creepy neighbor and says, "Why didn't you tell me you were moving? You're supposed to tell me everything." I'm in the car as he's shouting this, and my friend pulls down the window a bit and says, "I thought you knew everything," all sarcastically. We laugh and drive away, and we never see him again. Last year, my fiance and my mom passed away, one right after the other. After they died, I obviously fell into a deep depression. Though I thought I was pulling off the whole "I'm fine" thing, my friends could clearly see through it. A close friend almost demanded that I move in with her and get out of the apartment that I shared with my fiance for 10 years. She wanted me to start fresh, and while I didn't think I was ready to move on, the idea of not living alone was appealing. Plus, her apartment is in a much nicer neighborhood than the one I was currently living in, so I finally agreed. Living with her has been fantastic. Our schedules are opposite, with me working days and her on nights. We both get our alone time, but we also have at least one day a week off together so we can hang out. Moving has also allowed me to be able to walk to work since it's so close. I thought that would be a godsend until my 10-minute walk caused a 2-month-long nightmare. I decided to sit in the park that's between my apartment and my job one evening after work. As I'm sitting there, a man approached me. He was almost handsome, if not a little rough looking. Even though I live in an urban area with a high homeless population, it didn't occur to me that this man was anything but a mildly handsome 40-something guy. So I smiled and looked back down at my phone, expecting him to walk by me. But no, he asked me what time it was. When I looked up to tell him, I noticed all the stuff he was carrying. It was really random. A kid's chalkboard with nonsense all over it, a paper bag full of old magazines and paperwork, and a steel shelf that at one point would have held CDs. I then noticed he wasn't wearing shoes and his hands were filthy. Needless to say, it finally dawned on me that this was not going to be a normal encounter. He started talking, and non-stop, some of it being nonsense but some coherent, but all of it crazy. All of the parts I could follow. He told me he had just been released from prison and he was looking for a tattoo shop because he wanted to get a F to DOC tattoo, which stands for Department of Corrections. He then noticed a button that I had on my bag that had the logo for a local gay bar on it. He told me that he had gone there one night and went home with a guy. Then he looked me up and down and said, "But young ladies are my problem." I gathered my stuff and left immediately. Now, I love this apartment, but it has its drawbacks, which became glaringly obvious after this encounter. The apartment is on the first floor. I love it because you can walk out the sliding glass doors, one in the living room and one in my bedroom, right onto an awesome gated patio that has tables and grills for barbecuing, so it's awesome for the summer. But I now hate it because it's right on the street, and the fence is clearly very easy to scale. One very early morning, around 5 a.m., I hear a man scream, saying, "What the hell are you doing?" So loud and so close that it woke me up from a dead sleep, and I legitimately thought it was coming from inside my bedroom. As it turned out, it was coming from outside. A neighbor had been leaving for work and discovered a man, that same man from the park, sleeping against my sliding glass door. The dude got scared off, and my neighbor checked on me, and once I calmed down, I chalked it up to be a messed up coincidence. 2 weeks later, I was sleeping, and at some point this man came on the patio and was now tapping on my sliding glass door. I honestly just laid there, frozen in fear, until he escalated to full-blown kicking the glass. I turned the light on to grab my phone, and he took off. I called the police, and they came over to take the report and to look at the footage from the cameras in the building. The footage confirmed it was the man from the park, and more disturbingly, the footage from the hallway cameras showed me that on more than one occasion he had slipped in the building behind a resident and sat in the lobby for several hours, at one point going down the hallway and trying my doorknob and my neighbor's doorknob to see if they were locked. He even went so far as to hide in the little mailbox room when he saw my roommate coming in from work. The police think he either followed me from the park or had just happened to notice me at one point when I was on the patio. It's been a few weeks and I haven't seen him, and no one has reported seeing him in or around the building. My roommate bought me pepper spray, and my kinda kooky, albeit well-meaning neighbor, who has made it very clear he's retired military, and a bit of a gun nut, checks on me nightly, so I'm not as freaked out as I could be.